Avertisment. Emisiunea dezbate subiecte controversate. Teoriile explicate în acest episod nu sunt singurele interpretări posibile. Persoanele care urmăresc acest program sunt invitate să tragă o concluzie bazată pe toată informația disponibilă în legătură cu acest subiect.
But I showed them.
1 million volts.
No, sir, Tesla, no, sir.
Look, I live. I have not been Westinghouse. My currents can be domesticated, tamed like the beast of the jungle. My currents will be your servants.
The radio wave is useless unless you can tune it into a carrier frequency. I invented this. I made wireless communication work, my greatest of all ideas. The transmission of electrical power without wires. Imagine a world with no wires. Imagine no need for batteries of any sort. Imagine powering your home, your automobile, with a cheap and simple receiver, the size of a bread basket. No fossil fuels consumed, no smoke choking up our skies, no wires to obscure our view. I could do this. The great Commodore J.P. Morgan provided the financing for my world wireless tower on Long Island. It was coming to pass.
Get out, Tesla.
All I needed was just a few more tests.
Pocket change to a man of your
Damn it,
wealth.
Tesla.
Please.
Wireless electricity for the world, and all one needs is a cheap little device to receive it. How do you charge people for that? There's no goddamn profit in it, you vainglorious idiot.
You are above that.
Oh,
Please,
poor
Commodore,
kid.
this is beyond profit.
I'm tired of you and your visionary dreams and your naive prattle. So, leave my office now.
Sir, this is for the benefit of all
Out.
humankind.
Out!
He conspired with all the millionaires of New York. Suddenly, no one wanted anything more to do with me.
Well, as you know, there's been this debate for years over whether or not they are real. Most people don't think they are real, or most people at least are hesitant to say they believe they're real in public. What convinced you that they do in fact exist?
Well, for the last 2 or 3 years, I've been looking at the evidence and assessing it much as, I guess, a judge would, and trying to determine who was telling the truth and who wasn't.
And won the war for us.
They were based at Roswell.
They were based at Roswell, at Roswell Army Airfield. And as the intelligence officer, his job was to investigate unusual events. And a rancher found some strange debris on his ranch land some miles northwest of Roswell. He called the sheriff, brought some to the sheriff. The sheriff didn't know what this was.
Vedem câteva știri pe scurt acum. Obiectele zburătoare neidentificate au fost întotdeauna în centrul atenției oamenilor de știință, pasionați de astfel de fenomene. Dar în ultima vreme au apărut tot mai multe așa zise dovezi care arată că există o formă de viață și în afara Pământului. Și ne și vizitează.
I myself saw a UFO years ago. I'll tell you a little bit more about that later. Don't know what it was, where it came from. Sure seemed odd. And a lot of otherwise not so odd witnesses can tell you a similar
tell us
story.
about your own UFO sighting. We know that you're a pilot.
It's about 20 years ago.
Explain to somebody watching at home, they're looking at these pictures and they're saying, okay, so this rover comes upon, it's in this crater, everything's dry, everything's dusty. You're telling me there's water. How do you get there?
Well, when you have calcium and sulfur in these concentrations that they
Obiectele
found,
zburătoare neidentificate au apărut în timpul dezastrului de pe 11 martie, dar continuă să survoleze zona.
Вышло несколько версий. Сколько их среди нас, рассказывать не буду, потому что это может вызвать панику.
progressive development of man is vitally dependent on invention. Its ultimate purpose is the complete mastery of mind over the material world, the harnessing of the forces of nature to human needs. I was born on the stroke of midnight between July 9 and 10, 1856. A fierce electrical storm raged that night.
Nikola Tesla was born of Serbian parents on the eastern edge of the Austro-Hungarian Empire, in what is today Croatia. His father, Milutin, was an Orthodox priest who expected his son to follow him in the clergy. Early on, Tesla began to demonstrate an extraordinary imagination.
When I was a child, I discovered to my delight that I could visualize anything I imagined. I could see and understand the inner workings of everything, the molecular interactions. I could see energy in the air. I needed no diagrams, no models. I knew with this ability I could create great and wondrous inventions, devices to solve all of the world's problems.
When the Nazis rose to power in Germany, Tesla decided that the time was right to reveal his new source of power, a man-made form of lightning called teleforce that could shoot an airplane from the sky.
Nikola Tesla, electrical wizard and radio pioneer, announced that he was working on a machine to create a powerful electrical death beam which could wipe out armies in a flash and destroy huge fleets of ships or planes.
Tesla had experimented with this idea while at Colorado Springs. Now he intended to build it on a large scale. His plan was to charge small particles of tungsten or mercury, then accelerate them with lightning force through a special gun with one end open to the atmosphere. Tesla's death beam stirred the public's imagination when it was featured in a Superman cartoon, the Electro-Euthanasia Ray. But the idea was more than science fiction.
Tesla tried to sell this concept to various governments, England, the Soviet Union, and the United States, all Allied powers, and against Germany.
He offered his system to England for $30 million, and they entered negotiations. When Tesla demanded payment before sending the final plans, the deal fell through. The British attempted to build their own death beam, but the project was soon abandoned. As the Nazis surrounded Yugoslavia, Tesla attempted to sell a beam weapon system to his former country.
There should be needed 9 stations, 4 for Serbia, 3 for Croatia, and 2 for Slovenia, and it will protect our dearest homeland.
In 1978, evidence suggested that the Soviets were attempting to build a huge beam weapon near Semipalatinsk in the Ukraine. Soon after, President Ronald Reagan announced the Strategic Defense Initiative in March 1983.
I call upon the scientific community in our country, those who gave us nuclear weapons, to turn their great talents now to the cause of mankind and world peace, to give us the means of rendering these nuclear weapons impotent and obsolete.
Tesla's concept for a beam weapon defense shield was finally taken seriously by the United States to combat the destructive threat of atomic weapons. In spite of circumstantial evidence, there is no direct proof that Tesla's ideas or plans were used in the Strategic Defense Initiative. And even today, after decades of investment and research, scientists still disagree on whether beam weapons are realistic. No U.S. government archive has any record of Tesla's technical papers, which were copied immediately after his death. And what has become of Tesla's great dream to transmit electrical power without wires? This is the Navy and Air Force High Frequency Active Auroral Research Program, or HAARP, in Gacona, Alaska. The large antenna array is designed to beam high-energy microwaves into the ionosphere.
Tesla was his genius because way before anybody knew or even understood the physics of the Earth and what we call today the ionosphere, which is a layer of ionized particles about 80 kilometers above the Earth, he conceived it and he tried to use it to produce a variety of new concepts.
The HAARP project evolved from a patent filed in 1987 in which Tesla's work is referenced. It proposed using the ionosphere like an enormous electrical circuit to transmit power around the planet. It even described a means of changing the weather by superheating portions of the upper atmosphere with microwave energy.
When all is said and done, this power station is not terribly important. It simply makes practical use of theories we have long known about. Rather than congratulate ourselves, we should all feel ashamed that it was not built earlier. The real work is yet to come. Now we must destroy distance. Our senses tell us about things that are close by. To know what is happening far away, we must be able to transmit scenes from other places over long distances. Pictures, the news, energy, why not matter too? Now we must liberate thought. We must set it free of limitations that space and time impose on it, and yet keep its principal characteristics. Now and in future centuries, here on Earth and thousands of light years into the unknown.